They resisted it. The ending, the silence, the change. They kept trying to fix what life was already trying to remove. And slowly, that resistance became suffering. Not because life was punishing them, because they were fighting reality itself. And this is the strange part most people never understand. Sometimes the universe does not destroy your old life to hurt you. Sometimes it removes what no longer belongs to you. But here's what most people miss. Human beings are emotionally attached to familiarity, even when familiarity is damaging them. That's why people stay too long. In relationships, in habits, in identities, in emotional patterns that quietly exhaust them. By the end of this video, you're going to understand why some of the most painful moments in life are actually moments of revelation, and why fighting reality often delays the very transformation trying to reach you. But here's the warning. Once you understand this deeply, you will stop seeing discomfort the same way again. There's always that one person who cannot let go, not because they're weak, because they built emotional attachment around what once felt safe. And the mind hates uncertainty. Daniel Kahneman spent years studying how human beings react to uncertainty, loss, and psychological discomfort. And one of the deepest truths he revealed was this: people fear loss more than they value growth. Think about that carefully. Most people do not resist change because change is bad. They resist it because the brain interprets uncertainty as danger, even when staying the same is destroying them internally. And this is where everything changes. Your mind is not always trying to make you happy. It is trying to make you feel safe. That's different. Safety keeps people emotionally stuck. Growth requires uncertainty, and uncertainty activates fear. Now pay attention to this. There are moments in life where reality begins exposing things you no longer want to see. A relationship starts feeling emotionally empty. A career loses meaning. Certain friendships begin draining your energy instead of restoring it. You feel disconnected from the version of yourself you used to be. And instinctively, most people fight that feeling. They distract themselves, overthink, beg life to go back emotionally. But this is the part no one tells you. Sometimes confusion is clarity trying to enter your life. And sometimes discomfort is awareness, waking up. Now think about how many people continue forcing things long after their intuition already knows the truth. They stay because leaving feels terrifying, not because staying feels right. That changes everything psychologically, because now the problem is no longer external reality. It's internal resistance. And this is exactly where emotional suffering grows. Kahneman understood that the human brain creates narratives to protect emotional stability. We rationalize, we justify, we explain away uncomfortable truths because accepting them would require change. And change threatens identity. Now, this becomes dangerous over time because the longer you ignore reality, the louder reality eventually becomes. This is why emotional exhaustion appears before transformation. Pay attention to that carefully. People think exhaustion means failure, but often it means your mind can no longer carry a false version of life comfortably. And this is where everything starts shifting internally. You stop chasing emotional certainty. You start observing patterns honestly instead. Now suddenly you notice things you ignored before. Who only contacts you when they need something? Who drains your peace? Which habits numb your awareness? Which environments quietly shrink your identity? And this realization feels painful at first, because awareness removes illusion, and illusion is emotionally comforting. But here's what most people miss. The universe often reveals your next chapter by making your current chapter emotionally impossible to ignore anymore. That's why certain seasons feel emotionally heavy. Not because life is ending, because truth is surfacing. Now let's go deeper psychologically. When reality conflicts with emotional attachment, the brain enters resistance mode. You already know something internally, but emotionally you keep negotiating against it. The relationship is unhealthy, but keep hoping. The environment is limiting you, but stay comfortable. Your habits are destroying your focus, but repeat them anyway. And over time, this internal conflict creates anxiety because part of you wants growth, while another part wants familiarity. And familiarity usually wins in emotionally unhealed people. This is why so many people remain trapped in cycles they secretly hate. Not because change is impossible, because certainty is addictive. Now, here's where everything becomes deeper. Sometimes the universe reveals you by removing distractions first. Silence enters your life. Distance enters your relationships. Certain people disappear. Plans collapse unexpectedly. And initially, you interpret it as loss. But this is the hidden shift happening psychologically. Life is creating space for self-awareness. And self-awareness changes people permanently. Because once you see clearly, you cannot emotionally return to unconscious living the same way again. Now think about this honestly. How much suffering in your life came from fighting reality instead of accepting truth early? How many times did you try forcing what already felt emotionally over? How many times did intuition whisper while attachment screamed louder? That realization humbles people deeply because now you understand something powerful. Peace does not come from controlling reality. It comes from aligning with it. And this is the part no one tells you. Acceptance is not weakness. Acceptance is clarity without emotional denial. It's the ability to see something honestly without needing illusion to survive emotionally. And once a person develops that ability, their entire life changes because now they stop wasting years resisting necessary transformation. They let life reveal them instead. And this is where the deeper transformation begins. Not when life becomes easier, when you stop fighting what reality has already shown you. Because resistance consumes enormous emotional energy. Trying to force people to understand you, trying to force broken situations to work, trying to force old versions of yourself to survive. Eventually, the mind becomes exhausted, carrying what the soul already wants to release. And this is why emotionally aware people often go through periods of isolation before growth. Not because they are cursed, because awareness naturally separates you from what no longer aligns with you. Now pay attention to this carefully. Most people think awakening feels peaceful immediately. It doesn't. At first, it feels uncomfortable. You begin noticing things you ignored before. Conversations feel emptier. Certain friendships feel performative. Old habits stop satisfying you emotionally. And this creates confusion internally because part of you still wants familiarity, while another part wants truth. Daniel Kahneman explained that the brain prefers predictable pain over uncertain change. That's one of the deepest psychological traps humans experience. People stay in situations they know are unhealthy simply because uncertainty feels scarier. But this is where everything changes. The moment you stop fearing uncertainty, your life begins opening differently because now growth becomes possible. Now, here's what most people miss. Reality does not always reveal itself through dramatic events. Sometimes it reveals itself through repeated emotional patterns, the same disappointment, the same exhaustion, the same feeling of misalignment returning again and again. That repetition is not random. It's information. Life keeps showing you what you refuse to fully acknowledge. And emotionally intelligent people eventually understand this. They stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this trying to teach me? That shift changes everything psychologically, because now suffering becomes awareness instead of punishment. Now let's go deeper. There's a reason some people feel emotionally lost before major transformation. The old identity is collapsing, but the new identity hasn't fully formed yet. That space feels uncomfortable. You no longer fit your old life emotionally, but you haven't fully stepped into the next version of yourself either. And this creates loneliness, not social loneliness. Identity, loneliness, you feel disconnected from who you used to be. And this is the phase where many people panic emotionally. They rush backward toward comfort, back toward old habits, old relationships, old emotional patterns, because familiarity temporarily reduces anxiety. But this is the part no one tells you. Every time you abandon growth to feel temporarily comfortable, you delay your own transformation. And over time, that creates regret. Now, here's where the realization becomes powerful. The universe is not trying to punish you by changing your life. It's trying to reveal who you become without illusions, without distractions, without emotional dependency controlling every decision. And once you understand that, you stop clinging so tightly to what leaves. You stop chasing closure from people emotionally incapable of giving it. You stop begging life to remain familiar. Instead, you begin trusting the process of revelation itself. Now think about this honestly. Some of the greatest turning points in your life probably began with confusion. A painful ending, a period of uncertainty, a season where nothing made sense emotionally. But later, you realized those moments redirected your life completely. That's the strange intelligence of reality. It often breaks emotional attachment before it creates alignment. And this is where everything shifts internally. You stop measuring life only by comfort. You start measuring it by truth. Does this relationship feel real? Does this path feel aligned? Does this environment help me grow or shrink me emotionally? Those questions create maturity because now your decisions come from awareness instead of fear. And awareness changes people permanently. Now here's the final truth. You cannot become who you're meant to become while fighting every necessary ending. Some chapters must close. Some identities must collapse. Some illusions must break, not to destroy you, to reveal you. And this is why the strongest people eventually stop forcing life emotionally. They still care deeply, still feel deeply, but they stop resisting every uncomfortable truth because they understand something most people never fully learn. Reality becomes painful mainly when you argue with what already is. Acceptance creates clarity. Clarity creates direction. And direction changes life. So if life feels uncertain right now, if certain things are falling apart emotionally, if old versions of yourself no longer feel sustainable, maybe this is not destruction. Maybe reality is finally revealing the person hidden underneath survival, attachment, fear, and emotional conditioning. And maybe your next chapter does not begin when life becomes perfect. Maybe it begins the moment you stop fighting what truth has been trying to show you all along.